I'm Rita Brennan Turkowski, and I'm a partner manager in our developer ecosystem success team. And I'm here to host a panel today that we're naming From Concept to Monetization. But before I introduce my panelists and dig into what I think you'll find a very engaging session, let me ask you all a quick question. How many of you are developing a free-to-play title today? Okay, almost half. And how many of you are developing a premium price title? A little bit more. Well, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Well, that's great. Well, our panelists today actually have expertise in both, and I made sure to bring on developers from different experiences and different approaches to monetization as well. But we're mostly going to be focusing a little bit more on free-to-play apps and what makes them more successful overall. But fear not, we're going to be digging into when premium pricing makes sense and how to maximize your success there. So now to kick this off, I'd like to introduce my panelists and tell you a little bit about what expertise they bring into the panel today. On my near left, we have Joyce, CEO of Enver Studio, and his team here, his amazing team, I should say, here in the back. And their expertise overall is in building and nurturing communities as witnessed by the growth of the games they've worked on like Moto X, Froze, more recently optimizing the ROI on Scary Baboon. And this very week, popping at the top of the charts, we have a new game from them called Steal a Monkey. Congrats, Kyle, for that. Next to him, we have Spencer Cook, CEO of Continuum. And Spencer's expertise is crafting a live ops strategy, it's amazing, by the way, from observations, learning, and collaborations across similar titles. You got to check out their newest game, just out recently in early access, called it's spelled just simply UG. And you got to see how fast that's growing. And its Discord is crazy. It's amazing how many players are in there wanting to play test every week. And it's climbing fast in user adoption and reviews, and it's just in early access and not even being promoted that much. To his left, we have Garett Cook from Sail. Sail is a very interesting game because Garett has built an expertise in maintaining what I like to call evergreen success. His engagement and monetization has led to the best practices that he's using to grow this game. It's staying strong after 3 years on the store. Still doing great, and it's still in early access. So we're going to be talking a little bit about why and how that's working out in a few minutes. Okay, over on his left, we have Almir. Almir is from Sin Studio, one of our earlier start devs that I helped out a few years ago, and they have made Swordsman and Battlegrounds, both of which have done really well. And Almir and his team's expertise is in pivoting from one monetization strategy to another. A few years ago, it was really interesting for me to see Swordsman take off as a premium title, and now Battlegrounds is just crushing it as a free-to-play title. So I'm excited to hear what Almir has to say soon. And at the very end of my panelists over there, we have Alexei Ivantovich, who is a solo creator, developer of from Shotgun Gaming is the name of his studio in Finland, and he made an amazing game, or I should say app, really, called Play Hunt VR. And what's really nice about Play Hunt is he's built an expertise in building a successful niche audience within alternative markets. But okay, just to kick us all off, I'm going to open up a little icebreaker question to pose to all my panelists, and we'll start with Kyle. Kyle, how much do you think your game, or when you first started out, how much do you think your game or concept or genre you were in drove your monetization choice?
Ooh, I mean, with Moto X, we started as an arcade game, and we picked $7.99 instead of going free. At the time, it was like really early, so premium kind of made more sense. And it was an arcade game that we kind of pivoted to more of like a realistic arcade game. So we kept the price the same, but we added in-app purchase later on.
So we've had a few titles, and I feel like each one has been directly impacted by the revenue, or the monetization strategy has been directly impacted by the type of game that we create. We generally create social free-to-play games, so you need a lot of players in there, which means a lot of server costs and stuff, so you need to pay for it somehow. Players recognize that, and so we have a lot of in-app purchases, but that's solely driven around the fact that it's social free-to-play.
Yeah, so Sail is kind of an interesting case study because we started out as a premium title for $14.99, and it was a single-player experience at that time, so it made more sense to kind of, distributed as a premium title at that point, but the number one feature we were requested to add was multiplayer. And when we switched over to multiplayer, we figured, multiplayer games live and die on whether or not there's people in the game. So we decided to switch it over to, to be a free-to-play title. And with that, we had to change also like the monetization strategy because obviously, our typical $14.99 wasn't going to work anymore. So definitely had to evolve as the game evolved and our community evolved and stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what they said, but with Swordsman, it was a single-player game with one campaign, about 6 hours of playtime. So if we made that free-to-play, obviously that wouldn't have been great for us. So that was a natural premium type of game, but in a game that requires more of a social presence, leans to a specific audience. You're going to do live ops. That naturally just leans to the more of the freemium model. And very early on, that's how we've kind of chosen our routes.
I want to talk a little bit about concept ideation overall. How did your initial app concept evolve? And what were some early market assumptions?
Yeah, so with the concepts that we've worked on, we always went into it knowing that we'd give it a couple months, and if people didn't like it, we'd move on. We tried to not get emotionally attached early, because just because I like something doesn't mean the masses are going to like it, right? We were lucky enough to work as contractors. My studio was working as contractors for sale early on, just in that first little phase. And once we finished with that contract, helping out, that was our first VR experience with that. And we sat down, my business partner and I and a few of the team members, we said, well, what were the funnest things from sale that aren't pirate, right? We're not just going to go build another pirate game. Not only would that not be cool, but there's already a great one out there. And we decided that throwing was really fun and climbing was really fun. So we sat down and said, well, what throws and what climbs? It's like, well, monkeys climb vines and they throw stuff at each other. So we created this game called Monkey Do, and we said, we're going to give it 8 weeks. We're going to fund this for 8 weeks, have our team go crazy and get players in there. If people like it, let's keep going. And so then 6 months after we started developing, we launched probably prematurely. We didn't have all these tools and stuff, or at least we weren't aware of the tools that are out there now for like early access and stuff. It was different in 2022, but we got it out there and tons of people liked it. And so then we carry that into our other titles as well, most recently being UGG, that's launching a week from Thursday. And we're in an early access kind of closed alpha phase right now where you've got to apply to get access, and then you can hop in at certain times, and trying to build that barrier so we get a lot of people really bought in and build a lot of hype. But that was the same thing. We hopped in and said, is raising a dinosaur egg, or raising an egg, hatching that thing and like making it writable and kind of have this mech style action, is that fun at all? If not, let's move on. It seems cool in our heads, but we built it, prototyped it over 2 months, and we threw it out there to a few community members and they loved it. So we kept going. So just don't get too attached to what you're building, like move on.
Follow up. So from your learnings from Monkey Do and Cactus Jam, that was a while back, what would you say were your learnings from your very first important week in the store? What would you take away from that? For any of your titles back in the past, and know what you've learned that you've poured into UP, which is working.
Yeah, so we were very experimental. Like Monkey Do was our first title that we, again, we worked on sale a bit, but the Monkey Do was our first title. And so there was a lot to learn. Monetization wise, we're like, somebody else is doing free to play, let's do free to play too. And then let's just do cosmetics. We learned early on that less than 3% of people actually buy cosmetics. It was a pretty shallow kind of crappy way to monetize your game. So we had a lot of players in Monkey Do, and the only way we had to bring in revenue was cosmetics. And 2.8% of people were actually buying those. That's a really bad way to go about business, if you ask me. So it took us way too long, but that first week we saw that we had a huge boost because people were new to the game. They just wanted to buy stuff. And then it quickly kind of dropped down as far as revenue. And so we went back to the drawing board and tried to come up with other ways of monetization. So we came up with power-ups that were good to the game, but not like pay to win, but kind of pay to win. It kind of sucked to go that route, but it was like too little too late on that front. And so then we came up with the battle pass, and similar thing. It was kind of like patching a problem that we didn't realize was there. So we should have tested things out much more with the community early on before launching, so that we could ensure a good, successful launch. Again, it was an okay launch, but not crazy, and it died down quickly. So we should have had other monetization methods in there. Cactus Jam we launched, and we said, well, subscriptions worked for Derby. Let's throw subscriptions in. And it was, again, kind of somewhat of an afterthought that came late in the game, and it didn't work super well. So we decided that we would put everything into UG. You know, we did everything we possibly could, interviewing every free-to-play game out there that was similar, interviewing every influencer that was doing the content, every Discord community that was running a really successful community. We would interview everybody and just be okay with taking feedback and making changes. And so we came up with this very, very purposeful vision and journey that we would follow. And so far it's outperformed every one of our other titles, and it's closed access. You got to find it somewhere, click a button, fill out a form, wait for a playtest to come out. It's super inconvenient to join. Before we were like, hey, like the wacky wavy inflatable arm flailing tube man, we're like, hey, come over to us. Like we've got a game, come play, please. Paying all sorts of influencers. And now we haven't paid any influencers, and we have way more engagement and more views on TikTok and YouTube. And we have a bigger Discord community by 4x in 4 weeks than we have on Monkey Do in 3 years. And that's all because we've listened to the community and taken feedback from literally this panel right here, and probably 20 others that have been super influential. So be okay with having a bad idea and moving on, and then be okay with like getting your hands dirty and getting in and doing the work.
What were your, pick any title that you want to talk about, but what were your strategies for releasing in early access? And also want to talk about how early is too early?
Well, there's a few different ones we could talk about. I mean, with Yeeps, that was a really interesting one because, you know, we did all the marketing for that title, and we worked really closely with Jack, and we approached it how, like, similarly what Spencer's doing, where you create these different cohorts and you get people in early, get feedback, but limit the time on like when you can actually play the game. I think that's really important because it builds hype. Like, you have to build hype with the audience. And I think one of the biggest things, especially with free to play, it's a really young community. So you have to remember, like, their kids, like what's going viral to them or what's funny to them is like, you have to feed into that. That's super important. How early is too early is a good question. We talk about this a lot internally about like when or when not to release a game. We probably don't release like half the stuff that we're working on. Like, we build a lot of stuff and don't release a lot of stuff as well. A lot of games get killed and never make it. Like, we spent, $1.5 million on a game that we never released. And I think that comes down to like the getting signal question, where it's, you have to understand, okay, like, will this game concept resonate with the audience? And if the answer is no, there's just no point to work on it, even if you've invested a lot of time and money into the title. So I think that's a big problem in gaming in general, is like, you go so far down something and you're like, like, I've put so much time in, but if you really don't think it's going to succeed, like, you have to can it and move on to another title. And so how early is too early kind of ties back into that, right? Because if you can get something out in 6 to 8 weeks, like, I would release that. And, look at what Animal Company did, right? They obviously released something really, really early. And then over time, they added a lot more stuff through weekly updates, which is like what builds hype as well, right? Because people want to be first to a new game. They want to be like, oh, I found this, like, you don't know about this yet. And that's like a really important thing for this audience. Like, they want to be in the know of what's like the next thing, if that makes sense.
On the question of how early is too early, it really depends on what your intention is with your launch. How much effort are you going to put post-launch? Are you ready for the live ops? Are you ready for the weekly, bi-weekly updates? Is that something you're committing to? How big is your studio? What kind of return do you need on the thing that you're launching? Have you really created a game, or have you created a cool feature that you kind of want to test with the broader community? So you kind of want to answer those before you determine how early is too early. And then the thing that we focused on Battlegrounds at the beginning, we had a core loop that we wanted to test with the audience. So we only really cared about day 1 to 7 retention. I had one developer message me. He's like, "Oh, dude, like, our day 30 sucks." And it's like, well, that's okay. We're not focusing on day 30 right now. We're putting all of our efforts in solving day 1 to 7, and then we're progressing over time as we build the game out for day 30. And you got to make these conscious choices. Otherwise, you're fighting 100 battles, and you really only want to fight 1 or 2. And I think that summarizes it from our side.
So Sail is going back to like the how early is too early. I put Sail up on SideQuest back when it was an APK as soon as I had a ship that sailed backwards. Like, that was the first version of Sail VR. It was just a prototype where I pitched everyone my game. And the only reason I kept going with Sail VR is because that stupid ship sailing backwards got 30,000 downloads on SideQuest, right? So, like, in my opinion, the earliest you should be getting something out is as soon as you have something to show. Whether that's getting something out there in the form of social media content, pitching it to people, and then as far as like getting the feedback and stuff from those people, like see if it resonates. Because like Spencer was saying, if the game is dead, you gotta leave it and you gotta let it die. Because unfortunately, if it doesn't resonate with people, it's not gonna make you money. You're not gonna make a business off of it. You're not gonna keep going with it, right? And so with Sail VR, we continue to use that, like get things out as early as possible with our testing community. We have a whole community within our community that are our public testers. And as soon as we have an update or a feature or anything that we wanna test out, we push it to those kids and they give us feedback. They tell us like, yeah, this is great, or yeah, this sucks. And we go and live and die off of that feedback they give us. So get stuff out early, get feedback. And even if you guys are developing premium titles, create a Discord or whatever where they can jump in, try stuff out and give you that feedback, because nothing is worse than like putting something out there and realizing this is not the way I wanted it to go. So get it out ASAP.
Based on that, though, how did you gather early signals? Like, did you just check TikTok all the time? Did you go out on Reddit, X? What did you do?
Mainly through like obviously TikTok. Like creating your own content's really important. I think the biggest misconception that a lot of people have is like relying on other people to make content. But in reality, it's actually super easy, right? I grew my channel from like 0 to 50K subs on YouTube in like 3 months. And it was like part-time, couple hours a week. I definitely had a lot of people behind that. Right, a lot of people that we invested a lot into that, but it still shows that making content, anybody can really do it if you have the right formula. So I think that's the easiest way to get signals, because you can say, okay, we built this game, let's make a video on it, see what the comments are saying, right? But you also have to remember you're going to get negative comments guaranteed, even if it's a fire title. And a lot of the times the negative comments create controversy, which then get more views, and then that is what you actually want. So that's probably the number one way. Discord and like being really active with like your early adopters is so important. Like you have to understand like, what do these kids actually like about your game? Are they going to shill it to other kids? Are they going to build like a good referral system? Like Animal Company grew almost entirely off referrals at first, right? Before they even started to go viral. Like I'm talking really early, there was a lot of referral strategy. So that's something that's really important, as well as getting more people in there. But you don't need a lot of people in the Discord to understand if the game's going to be good or not, I would say.
We've launched 2 free-to-play games, and we've noticed that Meta actually does a really great job at giving you reach when you first launch, and you want to make sure that reach is not wasted. So yeah, you should go early. You want to test your concept, but you also want to make sure that your concept is baked enough to where the reach that you're getting, you're utilizing in the best way possible.
In order to build a community and get fast feedback, especially in the early days, like what kind of techniques did you guys deploy for like cultivating a community and soliciting feedback and then acting on that feedback? And I'm going to start with Alexi.
Yeah, the funny thing is that although I have a lot of experience in building shotgun games, I'm not an expert in shotgun sports. I've always relied on the community, and with Clayhunt VR, I've had this mindset that we're building this together with the community, and I think they really appreciate it, and they give back because of it. And the process for me is that I have a habit of doing sprint to implement smaller community requests between larger features. And they really get excited about if their request gets implemented. And furthermore, in my experience, it's good to get the community involved early because many community champions were early adopters who saw the potential in Clayhunt VR. And also, I feel that, or I felt that I need to manage the excitement in the community. So I need to prioritize cool features every now and then to get the community excited again. It might not feel like there's cool features in people are really passionate about this subject. So it's possible to manage the excitement and get the community activated again. Additionally, another mindset I have is that I'm not building just an app, but I'm building an ecosystem, and from where partner companies and community champions can participate. As a result, there are now a few companies making gun stocks only for client VR. And as a Finnish solo developer, it's crucial to have this kind of allies in key markets like US and UK. So they help a lot in communicating with the local shooting market and also give a lot of credibility in those markets.
So for the Battlegrounds, we have a test group called the Kingsmen. There are bug hunters, and every time we are about to launch a new update, about a week out, we give it to the bug hunters, and then we have a bug hunting contest. And the bug hunter who finds the most severe bug on a ranking list gets rewarded with special in-game cosmetics. And what that's done is created a dedicated testing group who genuinely cares about making the game the best it can be. And I mean, that's done wonders for us. I know other panelists have employed the same tactic, and yeah, you should too.
Can I say something about this? Yeah, so like we, again, Sell VR transitioned from a premium title into a free-to-play title. And one of the ways that I feel like we retained a lot of our premium users and made them seem super valuable is we actually built a custom cosmetic just for them that they got automatically by being one of the people who supported us in early access or during our pay-to-play time. So like little things like that make people go crazy. Like developing a community is all about creating like little groups and stuff. And the more ways that you enable that in your game, like the more that it's gonna like create like just these awesome groups that help each other out and stuff like that. And then as far as like gathering feedback from them, it's really important to be very respectful in like taking feedback from them, because they're gonna say stuff with you like, just fix it, bro. And it's like, oh yeah, let me push that button real fast, dude. No, that's what you want to say, but like don't do that, obviously, right? But like the more that you talk with your community and you show them that like we're taking your feedback, we hear it, we're listening to it, like they become loyal to you because they see that you care, you know. And I know all of you guys care about the stuff that you that you're making, and so if you show that to your community, they will return that like loyalty to you tenfold. So just make sure you listen and like try to show them that you're taking their feedback.
So moving on a little bit, let's talk a little bit about social mechanics. Look, in particular, what role did adding social mechanics within the game play for you in fostering your community, encouraging sharing, and enhancing player retention? And I'm going to start with you, Kyle.
So an interesting one was with Moto X. It started as a single player game, and then we ended up adding multiplayer later on, and as well as in-app purchases. And we saw like now, if you look at the revenue of our game, we sell more IAP than we do of actual sales month over month. And we've been in the top like 20 top selling for like over a year now. And so multiplayer is a huge factor in terms of like any game that you should be building it with multiplayer. I think there's still some exceptions to that, right? But I would say if you want to make a lot of money in VR where it's pretty difficult, you probably want to lean into social and multiplayer. But I would say like within like the social multiplayer, you should look at like what are deeper interactions that can create moments, like especially for this audience, like they want things that are funny and relatable. So lean into like memes, trends, you know, like Animal Company and like the shaken ass like sort of character, right? Like that was super viral, funny, but it made kids laugh in game. So that's like why it's a good social features.
Yeah, I would say that people don't share the mundane or the common, right? They share the outliers. Like the shaken butt on Animal Company is a perfect example. The mouth, the way it moves, it's so exaggerated. Everything's extreme, right? Kids aren't trying to escape reality to go into virtual reality to go have a mediocre experience like walk into the park. You know what I mean? They want to see monsters and fight things and like do things they can't do in real life. And so things that you do, you have to be extreme with it and allow for content creators to create content on their own. And so every challenge that we have in UG currently, we there's a long acronym for it. We've created like I can't remember the name. Anyway, it's a long one, and we have it written down for a reason because we got to go through and make it so that when filmmakers are making a film, they have, they got the start of the story. You got to go and you have a little bit of, a little tussle, and then you have a resolve, and then you have the climax, and then you have at the end, like, there's so much that goes into a story. So give the kids these tools that they can go make their little short films on TikTok. You've got to provide them with, that's a tool. Like the live camera for us, or any in-game camera, a better way for people to convey what they're doing, right? Like the Meta does have tools, but Live, in my opinion, is way better on that. And so use something like that to be able to let these kids capture the content on their own. We paid a lot of content creators and tried to force Monkey Do in the market, and ultimately didn't work. We just provided these kids with more tools with UGG, and now it's going crazy.
Regarding creating social experiences, Battlegrounds was intended to be a PvP multiplayer game. You fight in the kingdom, you earn your role in there, and you want to be the best warrior that you can be. But killing each other doesn't naturally create a lot of social experiences. So what we did is we created additions to our kingdom that you can only explore with other players. So you can't go into this dungeon alone. You need to go in there with 2 or 3 players. And naturally, that social fabric became much stronger for us. And then what we saw was, because these experiences were like grand, that you have to fight a Fire Lord boss who's like 7 times your size, and you did it with 2 friends and you finally killed him. That's the kind of stuff you want to share. So in creating tighter social experiences within the game, we naturally just saw a lot more exposure on social. And then on the working with creators, Swordsman specifically, we decided to be our own creator. We were like, we're going to create our own content because we want to ensure that we have control of the message that we're spreading to our users. And Swordsman was able to gather 20 million organic views in a year. And we actually use that organic exposure to create a paid strategy. So what we did is, if a user watched 5 of our videos at more than 100% view rate, we created an audience of them, and then we would retarget them when our updates came out. And we were paying for about a click, about 4 cents, which is, I think, one of the lowest I've ever heard in VR.
Okay, so for any of you, what do you wish you knew then that you know now, and what big changes would you make?
Oh, what we wish, a lot of stuff. Yeah, I wish there was a lot of stuff that I knew. Where should we start? No, I would say, like what Kyle said, is the updates. I'm a firm believer now that kids play updates, not games. And so use your PDP page as a social media and update that often. Make it familiar and consistent, but show the updates through that, change the imagery up so that Saturday morning when a kid hops on to go play, he's not searching for a new game, he sees the updates of what's there.
The only point I would add is, like, don't spend a ton of money on a title that you're not going to release. That's like the biggest learning.
That's a good one. Okay, I just want to leave you with a closing thought. Consider who your target audience is all the time. Define your audience. Know how you plan to reach them, how you want to reach them, and then, of course, how you will monetize them from the very beginning of concept ideation into development and then into marketing and maintaining your app for the long term. And thank you again for being here with